Andre Ewell versus Chris Gutierrez. We got this at a catch weight of 140 pounds, considering the short notice nature of this fight. But in terms of odds, we got minus 170 for Chris and plus 145 for Andre Ewell. Let's start off with Ewell, who was scheduled to fight Cody Stamann last weekend. Unfortunately for him, he tested positive for the COVID-19 and just wasn't able to meet the criteria in terms of completing his 10-day quarantine before jumping into his fight with Cody. And it's very unfortunate for Cody Stamann as well too, who did get a short notice replacement. However, that short notice replacement fell out the day of the fight, and now we get Andre Ewell being the first one who actually ends up getting his fight. So we know what we're getting with Andre Ewell. Fast hands, solid striking, very lanky for the division as well, too, at 5'8", with a 75-inch reach. Uses his range quite well, uses his speed very well, too, and I think his best attributes are his hand speed and his striking. More often than not, just with his hands. He has decent kicks in there as well, too, and he does a decent job of maintaining distance every now and then, but we have seen guys like Irwin Rivera go in there and actually land some good shots on him. Obviously, he goes on to beat Irwin, but you do see later in the fight that distance management starts to dwindle, and we see the distance start to get cut. Jonathan Martinez, that was a very close fight, and then Marlon Vera, we saw go in there and just absolutely put it on Andre Ewell, eventually finishing him later in that fight. Now, with Chris Gutierrez, the thing that's been big about him as of late is his calf kicks, and it really came to fruition in his fight against Vince Morales, where he's able to take him out relatively quickly with a bunch of calf kicks, and did a very, very good job of implementing that, hiding them behind strikes, feinting them, really getting his opponents to bite on them, and then following up with another calf kick. So I'm a big fan of guys that are able to use calf kicks. Another guy on this card that utilizes them quite well is Diego Lima, which is why I kind of not favor Diego in that fight, but I think that he's liver than the odds actually suggest. Chris Gutierrez is pretty much building his game off of that, and the guys at Factory X Muay Thai, specifically Mark Montoya, has drawn up great game plans in terms of being able to utilize that very effectively in his UFC fights. Now, last time around, we saw him go to a draw against Cody Durden in a fight where that entire first round he just gave away, with Cody Durden taking him down almost immediately and then just riding out that back control for the entirety of it. Did a good job in terms of fending off any of the rear naked choke threats that were coming his way, but we still saw Durden, maintain that control for, the majority of that first round, which is why a lot of people gave him a 10-8 in that round. The next two rounds, we see Chris go to work with the calf kicks, really start to damage the durability and the movement of Cody Durden, which is why we have ended up getting a draw in that fight. It's simple scoring, 10-8 in that first round for Cody Durden, and then the next two rounds for Chris Gutierrez. Now, here against Andre Ewell, he will have a 1-inch height advantage, but he will be at an 8-inch reach disadvantage. However, I don't think that matters when you have those calf kicks of a Chris Gutierrez. Like, his hands are okay. They're good enough to kind of hide the calf kicks that are coming behind it, but I truly am stumped in terms of how Ewell will deal with it. Like, Ewell will need to, he does fight in a kind of a long stance, and he's going to have to rely on his ability to get in and out and land his strikes, and I think he's going to be eating some calf kicks on the way in. I've always said now, like, the guys that show the best counter or the best strategy against calf kicks are, one, guys that are able to fight in switch stances, which I don't believe that Andre Ewell is completely comfortable in doing. And two, if you're a high-level Muay Thai player yourself, you kind of expect those calf kicks, and you do a really good job of checking them. Perfect example, Rafael Fiziev versus Mark Diakese. That's the one that I'm always going to bring up in these instances. I just don't see that from Andre Ewell, and I feel like we'll see Chris actually exploit that. At minus 170, though, I'm a little bit skeptical. I don't want to play Chris at that type of chalk, as I do believe that the better hands are going to come from Ewell. And again, given his 8-inch reach advantage, I think he could have success there. However, how long is that going to hold up? In comparison to how many calf kicks he's going to have to eat and how quickly that's going to catch up to him and really start to affect his mobility and his ability to get in and out and land those strikes. So I do lean on the Chris Gutierrez side of things. It's so hard to go up against a guy that has such an effective game plan and guys just can't do really anything about it. Like if we see Andre Ewell completely nullify and stunt the brunt of those calf strikes from Chris Gutierrez, then okay, maybe I'll start to back off the Gutierrez train. But I think he goes in there and absolutely chews up that lead leg of Andre Ewell. And I think Ewell will have a lot of difficulty in terms of keeping his game plan going with the strikes. And it's not even like Ewell can really lean on wrestling or jiu-jitsu of any sort. I just don't think he's at that level in terms of completely grinding out a guy like Chris Gutierrez on the ground or up against the cage or even in the jiu-jitsu realm. So I do lean Chris. I do think he wins this fight by chippity chopping those legs away. I think that whether it's a decision or a late finish, I think those leg kicks will start to catch up. And it's just so weird to say just because like it's kind of like fighting Khabib in the sense of the takedown is always coming, but you can't do anything to stop it. With Chris Gutierrez, those calf kicks are coming, and more often than not, people can't do anything to stop it. Cody Durden was able to kind of preserve his durability because he was able to take him down in that first round and control him and still eat the kicks for the next 10 minutes and still keep on moving forward, even though he lost those next 2 rounds. Whereas Andre Ewell, I don't think he has that ability to take this fight to the ground and control Chris in those situations. So again, I'll lean Chris, maybe a late finish, maybe second or third round finish. And I wouldn't mind seeing what those props are either, because I think those are very live to hit. I'm not sure if we actually, there are no props out actually, given that this fight was just announced yesterday. So I'll go with Chris Gutierrez, probably second or third round TKO. I wouldn't mind taking a stab at one of those 2-round props as well, as I think that, if he's able to implement it nice and early, I don't think Ewell will be able to eat it for 15 minutes and keep on chugging. So I'll go with Chris Gutierrez to win this fight via KO in the second or third round.